Welcome back to the Transform Your Mind to Transform Your Life radio, podcast, and television show. I'm your host, Life Coach Myrna Young, and sitting in the guest chair today is Dr. Nicole F. Roberts. Dr. Nicole and I are going to be talking on the subject, unlocking the secret superpower of generosity. Now, this is such an important topic because I have practiced these principles of generosity for a long time. You know, being a Christian and being a woman of faith, it's everything. It's always what the pastors preach. Give and you shall receive. If you want something, you've got to give something. And even if you don't want something, it just feels good to give. So this is a great, great topic today for us to just explore what happens when you give. So welcome, Dr. Nicole.
Thank you. I mean, as you said, give and you shall receive. I don't even know if you need to interview me. I think you just did it. I think I wrote it down. I'm like, it's things we say all the time, but when you hear someone else say it, you're like, yeah, that's lovely. That is lovely. Yes. Well done.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's a principle that is not foreign to me at all. But all right, so we're going to unpack it today. So let me give you an introduction. Dr. Nicole F. Roberts is a true game changer in the world of health, human rights, and generosity. As the author of Generosity Wins, How and Why This Game-Changing Superpower Drives Her Success, she shares her profound insights and experiences from working with presidents, diplomats, professional athletes, team owners, artists, and billionaires. Dr. Roberts is the founder of Health and Human Rights Strategies, a Washington, D.C.-based advertising advising firm, and the executive director of Feed a Billion, an international nonprofit that feeds girls in need. She is also the host of the Global Good podcast and a contributor to Forbes. With a doctorate in public health, a master's in public policy, and an unwavering commitment to making the world a better place, Dr. Roberts has worked to solve global problems following war, disasters, and extreme poverty. Her message is clear. Generosity is the key to success in all aspects of life, and small acts of kindness can have a profound impact on the world. Dr. Roberts' mission is to inspire and equip others to manifest a better future, longer life, and happier world through the power of generosity. Wow. Yes.
That was
yes.
a lot.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you so much for bringing this, this very powerful concept to my audience. So, one of the universal laws is kindness and generosity. So can you unpack for us what happens when we show kindness and generosity to each other? What is the science behind it?
Okay. Well, there's a few different ways to answer that, to be honest. So some of them may put you to sleep, and some of them may be really interesting. But I guess I'll start with, sort of the core of who we are as people. And it was not something I expected when we started this book. And so I guess actually I should take a step back real quick. So we wrote this book, and I say we because I have a co-author. His name is Monty Wood. Monty is a phenomenal human, maybe the most generous person I've ever met. In fact, the book idea was his. And once he started digging into the ROI, return on investment in being generous, because he's a very successful businessman, he started finding there was science as well. And so he spent time trying to find that right counterpart to him to look at the science while he really brought the expertise in business. And we just clicked immediately. And we went on this journey, and it took so many turns that we didn't expect. And what we did is we ended up writing a book that is a business fable. And it's fun. So we have a made-up character. Her name is Emily, and she goes on this journey. But all 12 interviews in the book are real people. And actually, at the end of each chapter, there's a QR code. So you could actually look at the QR code, and it'll take you to their LinkedIn, and you can meet these incredible people who live with, and you mentioned this, and what we tend to call it is a spirit of generosity. Like it's literally the spirit that lives within you. And these people we interviewed, they are successful in every aspect of their life, their health, their wealth, their marriages, their children, their external passions. And so for us, this book, it was just so fun. It took all these, like I said, it just turns we didn't expect, and we love the final product. And so one of the things we discovered along the way, and I felt like we know it, but it really surprised me, is that humans are the only species on Earth that is truly generous, which is why we call it a human superpower in the title of the book. Because I know you see the word superpower and you could think it's kind of cheesy. It's true. We're the only ones. And I did the research. You can look at primates, and they do exhibit generous behaviors and acts of kindness within their families. But we all know that, a male from a different primate group tries to come in, they'll just as easily kill that male as opposed to welcome them to their community. And so it really is us. We are so unique, and it is in the core of our DNA, I really believe, because it's how we survive as a civilization. It's how we have survived. It's by being generous to one another. And there are plenty of examples of us also being exceptionally unkind towards each other. But at the end of the day, we give often with no expectation of return. And we'll talk about that later. But in that giving, we give of our time, our energy, our networks, our dollars, and often we'll never know who the recipient of those acts was. But we know as a species, like it is upon us to keep this going and to help others and lift them up. So I think of it as on a very large scale that way. To counter that, where I get excited, I'm a doctor of public health and my background's in neuroscience. So where I get really excited is looking at sort of what happens inside of us. And it's pretty amazing. Studies have shown that practicing kindness activates all kinds of reward centers in your brain, like the ventral striatum, the prefrontal cortex. Like there's a lot of technical stuff we can't talk about if you want, but we all know that like that helper's high, as we call it, right? Your endorphins go wild, you get excited, you feel good, your neurotransmitters are firing. But what we find is that intentional acts of kindness, being generous to others and being generous to ourselves, actually changes our brain. It leads to these positive changes, like neuroplasticity is real. Our brains can change, new pathways can be developed, or they can get stronger as we practice being kind. And that enhances our altruism, our empathy towards each other. And it actually over time helps us learn to regulate our emotions, which, as we know, then seeps down into our bodies. So we are healthier, we are genuinely happier, our bodies live longer, all these things by being generous. And so, as cheesy as it can sound, it's actually pretty magical.
Yeah. The first time I was introduced to the concept was my pastor told the story of he needed money to close on a house, and he was expecting money to come in to help him for his down payment. And we're going to use God here. Everybody has different responses, but this is my faith, and that's basically what and he said that God told him to give away the money that he had. So that was such a foreign concept to me. You're looking for money, and God said to give away the money you had. And he gave away $10,000 or something that he had. And in return, he got like 50,000. And this was the first time I heard that. I started my walk of faith in the year 2000, right? 2000. And I've heard that story so many times. that, I mean, I even remember there's just time that I was, and I don't know why I remember it still, but I was on a networking event, and this guy comes up to me and he started talking, and he says to me something similar, like, if you keep your hands closed, then you'll never get anything in it. If you open your hand and give, that is the way things flows. So there's, I understand that there's a science behind this, and it's not just the Bible teaches you to tithe, and God will look after you, and the windows of heaven will open up and you'll receive blessings. But that's not only that. I think that it's a universal law. So on the giving and receiving and opening your hands and all that kind of stuff. And that's basically, what I wanted to start off with. So what is the science behind that law?
Well, I don't know that people will disagree, but it's hard to put science behind karma in a way. But I will tell you that as we interviewed everyone in this book, so I took a very academic approach. People who know me know there were spreadsheets involved and lots of whiteboards and arrows. But one of the things that I found was the consistency in people we interviewed talking about what I will just broadly call karma, but they use synonyms. Like very few people actually use the word karma. They talked about ripple effect. They talk about how things come full circle, how, like you said, give and you shall receive. And I did not realize it at first, but then when we went back as we looked through transcripts, I kept finding out, I kept saying, they're essentially saying the same thing, but they're saying it differently because they come from completely different walks of life, where they look at how and why it came back to them. But it is actually back to the core of the original premise of the book. When Monty first had this idea, to him, he was saying the reason he had been so successful in business is because he knew that by genuinely, authentically caring about the people who worked with him and around him, they would always work 10 times harder for him, right? He always gave of himself, his time, his mentorship, his genuine care for them. And they all worked hard and everyone succeeded. And so he knew there was this, it's not transactional, but this reciprocal sort of thing.
I would call that energy, You wouldn't call that energy?
Energy. Yes. That's a great word for it.
Right. Yes. Okay. All right. So yeah,
right. I love that word. Energy. In fact, I guarantee more than one person probably used that word.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's the energy. And if you give your energy, it's love is an energy. And if you genuinely love and care for people, that energy translates to them. But if you're a mean person and you don't care about anybody, then you're also giving out that energy, right? And what you get back is that same energy, because whatever we put out, we get back.
Yeah, you point that out, and it reminds me, I hadn't thought of this till you said it, but one of the interviewees in the book is a behavioral scientist, because of course I had to have a behavioral scientist in there to talk about why we behave the way we do. And I loved him because he was such a skeptic. I think we brought him around in the end. But, he talked a lot about transactions. And he pointed out, and we all know this to be true, we're pretty smart, right? Like we know when something is transactional. We know when someone's like, oh, I'll do this thing for you. But it comes with something.
Right.
It comes with an expectation, or now I'm bound to, I have to, right? We also know the difference when someone gives freely of themselves, no matter what it is. I mean, it could be as simple as a smile when we need it most. We know when it's genuine and it's being given to us as support, and they don't expect you to say anything in return. You may give a nod, right? That may be it. But that, like you said, that energy, that reciprocation, there's a real, like we inherently, for the most part, we know when people are really giving and when there's a transaction. And only through that authentic giving can there be trust. And that's what builds relationships.
Right.
And that can't happen when it's transactional.
No. This episode is being brought to you by BetterHelp. We all carry around different stressors, big and small. When we keep them bottled up, it can start to affect us negatively. And therapy is a safe space to get things off our chest and to figure out how to work through whatever is weighing us down. Several months ago, I started being angry all the time. I mean, I would feel the anger just bubbling up like a cork, like a bottle that's corked, and then it would just blow up. And I knew that there was something bothering me. There was something triggering me. So I sought out therapy. And my therapist told me that there were some feelings that I haven't addressed, some emotions that I haven't addressed. And that what I did is that I stuffed them down. And whenever I feel this anger that's coming up, then I should be aware, which is catch, and then release by breathing and exhaling it. So if you are thinking of starting therapy for whatever reasons, because we all know when something is not right with us, or if there's something that we want to feel better about, then give BetterHelp a try. They're entirely online, and it's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. So get whatever it is off your chest with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/TYM to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp.TYM.
Are you a believer of magic in the universe? Visit Twilight Wings Magics on Etsy. Twilight Wings is a professional spiritual healer who specializes in spells and rituals to create change in your life. Get one-on-one service and trusted 5-star spells that have worked since ancient times to discover wealth, rebuild your relationships, and help you find success. Visit Twilight Wings on Etsy by searching Twilight Wing Magics.
Yeah, and as a salesperson, I understand exactly what you're saying when you're using the word transaction, because they teach you in the corporate world that you've got to care for the people that you're selling to or you're working with, and it's not just a transaction. A transaction, for those listening, they don't understand what we're talking about, is let's say that you go into a sales transaction. I give you something, you give me money, right? And it's finished then, right? You walk away. But when you have relationship, then it proceeds after the transaction. It's not just a transaction. So yeah, if you were in the corporate world and it's just transactional, you were operating so that you can get something and you don't care, you don't want to build relationships, then yeah, it's going to affect the culture of your organization. Another word people use a lot now, the culture of your organization. And it's a good way, it's a good way to be. And they're always saying that the head of the organization defines the culture. So yeah, if Monty found out that when he cares for people, genuinely cares, because they know, then they work harder, the business grows, and everything is great. So one of the questions I have here leading into that is, how did Monty, whether he talked in the book or you want to discuss it here, how did he see that using the laws of generosity helps his business to grow?
Well, I've already alluded to it a little bit, which is he knew just from experience that when he gave of himself, his time, his energy, he cared for his team, that they always worked harder. They gave back. And I would also add to that, from my experience, and a lot of my work is, I'm a doctor of public health, so a lot of my work comes from medicine and what I would broadly kind of say is like nonprofit healthcare work. But it's about mission, right? When people buy into the mission, and when you are doing something, even if you're selling a thing, right, in sales, one of the first questions you get asked is about what need are you meeting? Because if you're
Mm.
not meeting a need,
Right,
what are you doing, right? What are you
right,
selling?
right,
What do you
right,
have to
right.
offer? And so if your mission, whether it's a for-profit selling of something or nonprofit out setting up clinics after a disaster or whatever it is, right? If you are honest and giving in your mission and you care about that team that works around you, they are also going to buy into that mission.
Mhm.
And at that
True.
point, right, it's off to
Right,
the races because you're
right.
all working towards those same goals. And it could be as simple as meeting a very specific need, a plug, a thing that plugs in and but everybody needs it. So how do we
Mhm.
help get that to them? How do we make it work with all the different products that they have that goes into it, right? Thinking about the client. How do we meet their needs? All the way to the complex of something has happened. There's been an earthquake. How do we set up infrastructure so that people have clean water,
Mhm.
shelter, food, right? Like, as long as you are working together towards a purpose,
Purpose. Yeah.
that camaraderie will build. And when people give, you naturally are open to the idea that things will be given back to you.
Right. That's good. But the spin that I had on the question was, I mean, I
Okay.
can understand that when you have a mission and everyone works towards it, and you're leading by example and they're
Mhm.
buying into the mission, yeah, people go home and they think about it and they just don't leave it at work because they care. So I can understand that impacts your business that way. But I was thinking of the businesses when I say the word grow the business with generosity, I'm thinking of charitable giving.
Ah,
Right,
mhm.
right.
Got it.
How do you, businesses that give to charity, 100,000, like Bill Gates, for instance, gives a lot of money. How does that, you used the word ROI when we first started, but with
Mhm.
Monty, how does giving increase your ROI money wise?
Got it. Yeah, I went a different direction with that. Thank you for clarifying. Well, we're seeing a lot of that, right? And I will tell you, working a lot in the nonprofit space, I've got to give a bit of a side eye to some companies, right? Because that corporate philanthropy, if you
Right.
will, has
Mm-hmm.
seen a huge uptick in recent years. And I think in some instances, it is so genuine that they realize the platform they have, the magnitude, um, and they can use that platform to lift up other people. And all of a sudden, everyone who maybe didn't fully buy into that brand or wasn't aware of that brand, all of a sudden they are, and it's tied to something that's meaningful and purposeful. We saw people do it really well and encounter when I have examples that are coming to mind, but I'm like, I don't want to call anybody out. But we saw lots of people in the last few years. I think the pandemic and things that happened around the pandemic, we saw a lot of organizations who really genuinely leaned into um, equal rights, justice issues, right?
Mhm.
Um, Access to care, uh, religious expression and freedom. And there were lots of things at play happening. And you saw some organizations who ran and hid. You saw some organizations who leaned right in and said, yeah, this isn't right. This isn't what we want to represent. And we don't want our company. And they would stop working with a client, or they would say, we're going to
Right.
take on this client to help them get their message out. Um, and then you saw others, and that's where I get a little skeptical because I think, to your question, so many companies saw the ROI in people leaning into these brands that they went, we have to have a cause.
Okay.
And and
Yeah,
then they would just
yeah.
kind of pick. And I think there were a lot of missteps because they would pick something that was in, especially the social justice space, but they were there just to sort of go, oh, I care about that
We're
too.
we're doing it. Yeah. Yeah. Well,
And
it's
then and
not a
then if you
bad, it's not a bad game.
no, but
But I'm
actually
just
that's a
saying it's
great
not
word.
genuine. Right, right,
Yeah,
right.
I feel like for some companies it became a bit of a game. And there
Yeah,
for a
yeah.
while I felt like every month, every actually, I will say it made it easier for me to like unsubscribe from a lot of emails I didn't know I was getting. But like, I felt like every company under the sun, one month they'd issue what they cared about here, and the next month we care about this, and the next month we care about that. And I think when it's real, it's incredible because you see people, like I said, who all of a sudden they look at a product, and I think this is true for the younger generations more than ours. I think they ask questions that we never asked. I think they're, especially in this world of like an Amazon, where if you want it, you can buy it and it can be in your house in 2 days, right? Their ability to vote with their click and their purchase and their dollar is different than what we were able to do. And so they're asking questions we weren't able to ask or didn't ever think to ask. They want to know where things are made, how they were made. Was there any, what kind of labor went into this?
Right.
What hands touched this? Was that legal? Is that ethical? Do I want to be associated with this? Or you can see that the founder of a company can put forth their thoughts, and all of a sudden, this younger generation in particular says, I like that. That aligns with my values. I now support that team or that whatever. And on the flip side, somebody can say something else, and you watch people go, yeah, I'm not going to order from that food place anymore. That is not aligned with my values. So the ability to be true to your values and your genuine passions and your purpose and what aligns with your values and put that out is brave in this world. At the same time, it signals something very powerful to people. And when those values align, the brand loyalty that comes from that is real. And the dollars that come with it are very real.
Very real. Yeah. Yes. If you align with a charity or a cause and you put your money behind it and you maybe talk about it and I definitely can see that the people that are buying your product definitely will probably click more, because everything is bought online right now, right?
One example that comes to mind that had this really cool ripple effect, as I saw it, I actually wrote about it in Forbes, is during Mental Health Awareness Month, there was, or I think it was suicide prevention, and NFL players had cleats specially made that have 988, which is the new national suicide hotline, and they wore them. And what I loved is they had to get permission from the powers that be, but it was so powerful because it was individuals who had actually been impacted by suicide. One in particular who had lost his sister, and he's instigated it with other NFL players and said, I want to do this. I want to draw attention. And he waited and did it during the Dallas game, because what we had found is people who live in rural communities were less aware of the new hotline. Whereas if you live in a major city like I do, the posters and banners were everywhere. And so he was like, I want to use my platform to help others by doing that. And there was a bit of pushback at first of like, well, if we choose one cause over another, and enough players got behind it, said, yeah, that's something I want to support. I know someone who has struggled with. Well, then the teams bought in, right? And then ultimately the NFL had to buy in. And so for the NFL to use its platform to let a suicide prevention hotline number run around the field, like the power of that, they saw what that message would send and what it would reflect on the league. And they made that, unintended, they made that call. That was
I don't remember that campaign, but
message.
Right. I don't remember that campaign, but I do remember the NFL players getting involved in some others. One that I'm thinking of is breast cancer and a couple of other things. But they have them on their shoes or they have them on their jerseys. And listen, there's no bigger audience than the NFL.
So I was just going to say, and if the NFL says, okay, There's a reason
Yeah.
they're not just letting their logo
And the
be
great thing
used.
about the NFL is that they have from the babies to the 90, they have the whole gamut.
They do. Full walk of life. Yeah.
Yes. So that's awesome. All right. Now, you alluded to it in one of your answers a minute ago, but I have a question that I had here regarding human suffering and extreme poverty following war and natural disasters. Now, when these things happen, there is people advertising on Instagram, on TV, and they're asking you to send money. But is there any other thing that we can do as far as generosity other than sending money to help with these natural disasters?
Absolutely. There's natural disasters, there's man-made disasters,
Yeah.
there's, right, all kinds of things. Yeah, so a natural disaster is a little bit of a different bucket because for the most part, we understand them, but they're completely unpredictable. They take us off guard and they sort of rally, right? Like everything about the human condition, you want to help in those
Right.
sorts of situations. That
Right.
said, as the world has gotten more global and we've got a 24-hour news cycle, we've seen that sort of taper off because there's wildfires here, floods there, tornadoes there. And all of a sudden, that one-off extreme event is now, it feels like there's
Everywhere.
always something going on
Right.
somewhere.
Right.
War certainly does not help that at all. There's always multiple wars, whether we hear about them or not, at play. And so in that case, a donor dollar goes a long way. What I would caution is to find things that are, there's a bit of two extremes here. I always encourage local because people in a community know what they need. Someone who lives in a different country, doesn't speak their language, has absolutely no cultural context, may be able to say, well, we need water and shelter and food. But beyond that, right, like there's so much at play at the local level that a lot of times you just go, oh, we'll send this. And it's a little flippant and it's not something you can really touch and feel, if that makes sense. Now, that said, there are lots of wonderful organizations that are global in scope and they deploy teams who are very skilled to go in and help and do and deliver. Particularly like earlier, I think I said like an earthquake, clean water, it's got to get there. And there are really great tactical groups who know how to do that. And so that is a good place for you to put your support. But what people need in times of crisis, I mean, it could even be experiencing homelessness, what a mother needs if she's in a situation to protect her children. Me, I have toddler, like I immediately, my empathy is I think of what does a mother need to take care of a child right now. And so I always look for organizations or groups that are doing things that really speak to what do you need to be safe and secure and help you have the resources to move to what's next. Because in that moment, you need a set of things, right? But you also have to get out of whatever situation you're in, from natural disaster to abuse to homeless, whatever it is, there has to be a next. And how do we help move you to the next? And truthfully, a lot of times that comes in different forms. It comes through network. I mean, all of us know our next job or opportunity is often a friendship away, a call away, a network away. And so there are so many ways to be generous that aren't just writing a check or clicking the button to give a few dollars. It could be, especially if it's domestic, reaching out to your network. Who knows somebody who we could even take them in for a short amount of time? Or, you know what? I bet everyone's actually going to need a toothbrush. How do we get the local dentist here to donate these things? How do we get a company who makes a product? I mean, another one like children. I'm learning every couple months, we need a new pair of shoes because this kid
Yes.
won't stop growing.
Yes.
Good for him. Means we're doing something right.
Yeah.
But those are the things, like those everyday human things really slip through the cracks when we're so focused on disaster.
Right.
And so I really always encourage people, when you want to give and you want to meet a need, there's the big immediate need, and then stop and think, if I took whatever place in life you're in, young to old, family, single, like what is it that I would need
Yeah.
to also move forward or help my children move forward, or, you know, whatever. It could be therapists who say, we're going to go donate our time. We're going to, whatever.
Yeah.
If you have a skill set, if you have resources, if you work at a dentist office and you have access to toothbrushes, if you work in a department store and you get a huge discount on socks and underwear,
Right. Yeah.
guess what people need in disaster, right? And so I just always encourage people to really think of yourself and think, what would I need? What comforts? What would I want?
Yeah.
And give what you can, where you can, how you can. It doesn't have to be money. I mean, that always does help, but there's so many ways that people have, you started by talking about your faith.
Yes.
The power of prayer,
Yeah.
especially when someone is in need.
Yeah.
You to show up and pray over people, to be with them in spirit. What it does, energy, as you spoke to, it is powerful. And in real time, it does something for someone else and it does something for you.
Yeah.
And in that way, you are being generous with yourself and you're being generous with others. It can be that simple.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. Yeah. I like what you said about
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, because yes, I mean, they reach out and they ask you to donate, but yeah, that's for global things. But the generosity is definitely something that you can do, because a lot of times, you yourself don't have a lot of money, right? But your time or your home, or I love it, prayer or a blanket or shoes or any of those things is being generous, opening your home, and those things. But yeah, so I'm glad that we're unpacking it, and we're making it real. But yeah, and I'm in Florida, and I can say that one of the things I love about Florida is that the elderly population, they donate their time. They're always volunteering somewhere, and I think that's great. That's generosity of spirit, if we put a label on that, right?
And
instead of sitting at home,
I'm sorry
right. I'm sorry, what were you saying?
I was going to interrupt you, but that right there, time. That is something I found when really looking at people's health and longevity, how long you're married, how long you live, these sorts of things, the health conditions you have, that people who give of their time actually experience much more reward themselves than just the money. I mean, we all know we can, and I highly encourage people to give, but you can click on a website, click the button, put in or hit your PayPal, whatever it is, right? And you go, it's done. That experience, that connection is very short-lived, and you will get a nice pre-written thank you in your email or maybe in your mailbox, right?
Right.
And that's the end of that engagement for the most part. You've done good, you sleep a little better, great. When you take time, even this, like just even over a virtual, like to just time you'll never get back. You can make $1. You can never get this minute back. So to spend it with someone else, exchanging ideas, learning, helping them, listening to them, mentoring, that is a much greater reward, not only for the community at large, but for that person and for you. Because those are the things that actually stick in your brain. You remember the conversation. You remember looking at the tone. You remember when you nod and go, that's actually good. I was like, yeah, right. Like, I remember that. Whereas I may or may not remember that thing I clicked. So time it's invaluable.
Yeah, and it's human interaction. And trust me, yes, it's very, very rewarding. Yeah, it probably lights up all those centers in the brain that you were talking about earlier. Yeah.
Yes, it
All
does.
right.
Yes, it does.
So that's great. Now let's talk about your organization. I was not aware of it. I know that there's Feeding America or something, was this right? But I've never heard of Feed a Billion. So yeah, let's talk about your organization. And I think, in the write-up, it says that you have a niche. You're feeding girls in need. So tell us about your organization and what are the girls that is it all over the world or in a specific region?
Yes. Yep. No, all over. We have hubs in India, Africa, and the US. And
Okay.
it can be a little tough to talk about sometimes, to be completely honest. So you mentioned Feeding America, which is a wonderful, wonderful organization all over the United States. It's food banks, food pantries. What we do is very, very, very different. So what Feed a Billion does is, I guess, to take a step back, for better or worse, much worse is the answer there. Women and girls are not, especially in other cultures, valued the same way that boys and men are. Child marriage rates are as high as they've ever been. Human trafficking is at its absolute highest. And I try to never pass judgment on a situation I've not been in or a decision that someone has to make that I could not fathom making or being forced to. It seems absolutely foreign to me. But there are families, even here in the US, and I can vaguely give an example, but there are families who have to choose between feeding their children or something else, right? Whether it be keeping the lights on, a roof over their head. And when it comes to food security, what we find is that girls are usually the last to be fed. And in other countries in particular, it's often the girl who gets married off. It's one less mouth to feed, someone else's responsibility now. And it hasn't changed. We'd like to think that those days are over. They're not. And so I can tell you in major cities around the US, in fact, they're all over the US, but particularly in major cities, there's often one or two schools that look like a charter school. They are a charter school or a public school funds. The websites look the same as all the others, but in reality, they're trafficking shelters. And every person that attends that school is a girl or woman. In some cases, one city in the South in particular, if a girl's mother is in a similar situation, she can also stay. But for the most part, it's girls. And inside those schools, it's a school, it's the real school, but they have a food pantry, they have a clothing store, they have all the things. And obviously they don't advertise it. They're completely off the record, is because it's a shelter at the end of the day. And there's a reason that they are hiding, but they want them to get an education. And I very much admire our public school system for doing that. And of course, you can tell that they can't really advertise it, which means they can't really fundraise for those schools. So it all has to be done by outside groups. And so, that domestically is an example of a partnership that Feed a Billion would have to help put food in those places where girls are who don't have access to good, nutritious food. And nutritious food matters because as we develop, as back to the science side, it's not just our bodies that are developing, our brains are developing. Our frontal lobes aren't fully developed until we're in our mid-20s. And so if a girl is malnourished, she can't concentrate when she is at school. She can't make good decisions. There's so much there that's happening. And so the purpose of Feed a Billion, we used to talk a lot about what we prevented. We prevent trafficking, we prevent all these things. And we reframed the way we looked at things a few years ago. And in the logo, it actually is a globe. And we took the continents out of the globe and we put a girl in the center of it. And the way we look at it is now the power of a well-fed girl. When a girl is fed and nourished, and that word I really love, because nourishing isn't just about food and substance, right? It's about your soul, your spirit, your body, your mind, your emotions. And you don't know how much of that is taken away from you until you've gone hungry. And so obviously I get a little emotional about this. But so we as an organization have really reframed it to talk about the power of a well-fed girl. A girl who is well-fed and nourished can do anything. She can change any circumstance, and the future gets better and brighter. So I've run a lot of nonprofits over the years and worked in a lot of countries, but I am particularly very proud of the work that Feed a Billion has done.
Wow, I love it. Like I said, this is why I love this platform, because I learn along with my audience. Like, I've never heard of that. I haven't heard of anything you just talked about. I didn't know about schools being shelters and girls, being fed in the human trafficking arena, yeah, but I do agree that women and children, girls, we are the population that needs the work, because we're the ones that are put aside and don't think, a lot of people don't think that we're valuable, right? Maybe
Or
just
you eat
make babies
less.
make babies and be wives or clean houses or something.
Exactly.
But yeah, so it's great that a lot of people are focusing on women now. Women and children and girls are now the focus, and I love it. I absolutely love it. So yeah. So how can anyone how can someone that's listening help your organization? Do you guys do you fundraise, or how does that work?
Of course. And as much as I also just said, like, well, clicking is the least tangible form.
You gotta click.
You gotta
Because
click, and you will get a nice thank you
serve locally. You see, you gotta click as well, right?
You got to, and you will get a nice thank you letter. I'll write it myself. But yeah, so feedabillion.org is the organization. And beyond that, you'd mentioned the books. I wrote a book about generosity and different, all the limitless ways we can give of ourselves. And we actually have a website for the book, generositywins.us, so .us. And I do encourage people to go there. I mean, you're welcome, if you want to buy a copy of the book, to buy it from one of the big retailers. But we actually knock some of the price off if we sell it, direct, and support the small guy. But so yeah, feedabillion.org, generositywins.us, and I'm on social media pretty much everywhere. I don't TikTok. I'm in that age.
Is your name,
right?
or Generosity Wins? What's your handle?
Nicole, I think almost everything is Nicole F. Roberts. And I put the F there. Obviously, it's my middle name. But there are so many Nicole Roberts. I have the most basic name ever. And there's so many. But even though I'd like to think I'm always going to be the top of that Google hit, I don't know that it's true. So Nicole F. Roberts.
Roberts is on Instagram and all that. All right. So tell us about your book. I know that we started off the conversation talking that your book is about interviews and people that have experienced why generosity wins. But so you can add anything else here about the book. But what do you want readers to walk away with? What is the central message?
I have one sitting here. It's so fun after all this labor of love to hold it in your hand.
I know.
Very nice. Cool. Although the moment that really got me was when my dad got a copy. I was like, well, that's what I was crying. My dad's holding my book. It's so cool.
It's beautiful. Yes.
I think for me and for us, I think I can speak for Monty. It's really about, like I said, this is a superpower. It connects all humans. We can choose to be unkind. We can choose to only focus on ourselves. And but at our core, we are built to work together. We are built to take care of ourselves and to take care of others. And I think it really is a superpower. And for me, while I think everyone, and again, you talk like the whole walk of life, I've had everyone from people giving this as a graduation gift for people who are about to embark on their career of like, how do you set out on a career where you build generosity in your career, all the way to people who have been retired and said, it's time for me to start thinking about
right.
giving back. I've got time now. I have something like I need to think differently. I've been so focused on career or raising children. I want to think differently now. And so I really believe, although the book is for everyone, anyone who's in transition or wants to go through transition, because being generous every day takes intention. And I really believe that, like you mentioned, it's no different to me than prayer or faith or anything else. If you want to do it and you want to be really committed to it and you want it to become a part of who you are and how you interact with the world around you, you have to practice and be intentional about it. And so we encourage people, we call it like a 30-day challenge, which sounds silly, but it's true because it takes at least 2 weeks for your brain to really start processing change. And we know habits take more than 2 weeks to build. And so what we've been encouraging people to do is every day, before you go to bed, to just write down something generous you did for someone else and something generous you did for yourself. And if you want, how it made you feel. But it's 50-50. It's equally important. We cannot give from an empty well. And so what did you do for someone else? Again, it could be as simple as a smile. I did this thing for a coworker that was clearly having a bad day, or I sat for an extra 5 minutes with my child who was struggling tonight over something because they needed that from me, right? It could also be as simple as, and I'm going off my own experience right now, like I have a very stressful job and a toddler. The weather's finally warm in DC, and my husband this past week, I'm like, I just need 5 minutes outside. Like, I just need to go outside and like breathe and get out of the office.
Smell the air.
But those few minutes are for me. And I gotta let the day go so that I can bring a better version, may not be the best version, but a better version of myself to my toddler, to my husband. And I just need those 5 minutes. Just give them to me and I'll come back and I'll change the diaper and I'll do. And so I really encourage people, it doesn't have to be grand. It doesn't have to be extravagant. It doesn't need to feel overwhelming. It can be so simple, but every day, what's something you can do for someone else and what's something you can do for yourself. You do that over a month, and the next thing you know, that spirit that you live with of being generous, it becomes easier and it becomes second nature. And all of a sudden you find that you just naturally do things for other people, and you set your own boundaries. You say, I need to do this for myself, because you've seen the reward, right? You had your own ROI. I saw what those extra 5 minutes did for me and for my family. That's an investment in yourself. So it's business, but it's also personal.
Yes. I love it. That's good. We always forget about ourselves, right? So I love that. Generous to yourself as well as generous to others, right? And
well, and it can feel selfish, right? We often, and it's not about being selfish. It's not about extremes. It's not about overindulging. It's about taking care of yourself and setting yourself up for success.
Yeah. And as just something just popped into my head a minute ago, where one of the online pastors was talking about how one of his acts of generosity is, when he gets up in the morning, he makes coffee for his wife, even though he doesn't drink coffee. And as you were saying, small little acts of kindness, generous, you know what I mean? Yeah. And yes.
I wish my husband did that.
Right.
I wish he did that. He hates it. I love it.
I was just putting,
here it is.
Yes, I was just putting an example on the small acts of kindness and things that we can do for others.
It's a beautiful gesture.
Yes,
that is a perfect example. That is a beautiful gesture. I love it.
It just popped into my head, and it gives people context. So that's great. Yes,
right. But this also gets to what we said earlier. It's limitless. Like there is no number of ways to be generous. It is limitless because it is about personal understanding and acts and what I would find that incredibly generous.
Yeah.
At the same time, someone else.
I'm also going to touch on what you said too. That the reason he's talking about it on TV is because it makes him feel good, right? That he's doing this. You know what I mean? So it comes right back.
Exactly. See, in that case, everybody wins. Everybody wins when you're generous. There you go.
Because he feels good about doing it, and he's, he's right. So yes, so he's talking about it because he feels that yes, that is a generous act of him, that he's doing that for his wife, and he feels good, and she is grateful, and all that. So it's beautiful. It does win. I mean, your book is perfect. The title of the book is perfect because it does win. If we want to sum this up in a nice, pretty bow, you give to receive, but you don't only give to receive. You give to feel good about yourself, and the law of the universe is that when you give, you will receive. Even if you're not given to receive, it's going to come back to you. You use the word karma. It's the same thing. What you put out, you get back. Right? Karma. It's a universal law.
You got it.
Right. And what that person had told me about opening your hand that one time is that things have to flow, right? It's all about flow. You give by opening your hands, and then it flows back into you with a hand still open. So there's so many principles. And even if I want to tack onto your word, superpower means that it's, when we think about a superpower, it's a supernatural ability. And yes, what you get back from generosity is the supernatural ability to rise higher in everything that you do, whether it's your business, your marriage. You be generous in your marriage, you're going to see an ROI in there.
I think you just became our marketing team. I think is what just happened.
Yeah. I mean, anything that you're generous about, you're going to get it back, right? Even if you intend for it to be transactional, you're going to get a reward because it's the laws, right? So yes, beautiful. I love it. It does win. So yes, thank you, Dr. Nicole, for being on the show. Thank you for, illuminating our brains and our minds about generosity and, helping others, whether it's in your community or after a natural disaster or whatever you can, you be generous. And like I said, it's my foundation, I give all the time by tithing, 10% of my income. I give to charities all the time. I give a little bit of my time at church, but I'm not retired and I don't have a whole bunch of time. Well, just give, a couple hours on Sunday at the church. But yes, because I know it's a principle. And it's a principle.
You got it. I love hearing this. Like, it's so fun. It's so fun because also I've learned when you put it out, you can't guarantee what's gonna like register with someone, what's really gonna sink in with them, what's gonna be that example that pops into their head. And it's so fun to put out ideas that we all know are true, but you don't actually spend time like thinking about it deeply. And then when you do, all of a sudden it's just like, oh, and then I hear these wonderful things and I'm just sitting here drinking my coffee going, yep. It brings me joy. And on a day like today when I'm so tired all night,
it fills your cup.
It's so nice. So thank you for what you also just gave to me, because it gives me that extra boost of energy for the day. So thank you.
That's beautiful. Well, thank you. Yes, listen, I started off by saying that this is an awesome concept and one that I've lived by, based on what the Bible teaches, right? But now we're expanding it to businesses, we're expanding it to a whole bunch of things, and we're sharing what happens to us when we give. It's a superpower. Yes, I'm definitely tagging on to that word. So it's great. All right, well, listen, we're fresh out of time. So thank you guys for tuning in to the Transform Your Mind to Transform Your Life radio, podcast, and television show. I hope that you're inspired by Dr. Nicole and our conversation today regarding generosity, and that now that you know what to do, that you will incorporate it as a habit. Like, Dr. Nicole says, it takes, a couple of weeks for a habit, but you start off small and then you will become a generous person if you're not already. So we appreciate you tuning in. If you're listening on iTunes, we'd love for you to, rate and review and subscribe to the show. If you're watching this on YouTube, would love for you to hit that subscribe button and maybe leave a comment. Maybe what have you gotten something back from being generous?
Yes.
I talked about my pastor.
That.
Yeah, right.
I'm telling you, some of the emails I've gotten, I mean, tears, like tears. And sometimes they are small acts, but when you hear a person say, here's what I did, and here's the ripple effect, like here's what happened at work, and here's how it made me feel, or we love, oh my gosh, we love hearing examples, right? Because it reminds you limitless ways to be generous.
Yes. So yeah, we would love to hear your stories. And I started out by saying the one that got me is when my pastor shared a story about giving away money when he needed money, and then it came back to him. And like I said, that is not unique. I've heard that all my Christian life about people talking about giving, and then the windows open up, just like the Bible promises. Windows open up and you wouldn't have room enough to receive. So that's amazing. So that's my little, that's, my end soliloquy. Any last words, Dr. Nicole, before we wrap up?
No, I just say thank you for having me. Like I said, you're
welcome.
It was a wonderful conversation, and thank you for giving me the space and platform to talk about my work in the book, but also there at the end, like I said, that reciprocal part where you take these messages and you just repeat them in your own way. That's awesome. It's like I get my own gift. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Yes. I am generous, I think. Yes. So
you're certainly generous with your time. I know that from experience.
Yes. So thanks. And you guys can also check out Nicole on her podcast. It's called the Global Good Podcast. What a name. Beautiful. Right.
Yeah. Its own thing.
Yes, right.
Yeah. Easy to find. I look forward to connecting with everyone. Yes, so thank you. Have a wonderful day. Be generous, be happy.
Yes, thank you. Yes, you heard that. Be generous, be happy. Practice small acts of kindness. So thank you guys once again for tuning in. And until next time, namaste.